My great pleasure to welcome you all to our annual conference and to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today. We've always prided ourselves as offering people a comfortable and friendly atmosphere to engage in cross-border conversations and to strengthen relations within and across these islands. The coronavirus pandemic has presented us with challenges in doing that. But even though this is the second year in which our conference is taking place online, we still hope that comfortable and friendly atmosphere can be maintained to the best of our ability. I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the support of the Dormant Accounts Fund NI, which has enabled the Centre for Cross-Border Studies to invest in digital technology and training to allow us to continue to communicate with our friends and partners. And some of what you are seeing here today is as a result of that generous support. However, as we set out over the course of the day to test the health of the conditions for post-Brexit cooperation, with 2 keynote speakers and 3 panels looking at the political and social context, as well as how we measure how those conditions may be impacted by the introduction of new regulations, I'd like to ask you to ensure you are sitting back comfortably and that you remember to take breaks from the screen whenever you need to. Stay logged onto the conference, but go and make a cup of coffee or tea, take a walk, and come back whenever you are ready. If there are any technical hitches, don't panic, we'll fix them. You can watch back any parts of today's conference afterwards, so you won't miss anything, even if your internet connection drops off for a while. Can I also ask you, if you have any questions for the speakers, to please place your questions through the chat function. We may not be able to answer all your questions today, but we will try to get answers for you afterwards. Also, use the chat function to exchange views and share information with all the other people attending this conference from these islands and further afield. And use the hashtag #CCBSConf on social media. This year's conference is concerned with understanding what conditions are necessary for cooperation and good relations within and across these islands. It comes as the Centre for Cross-Border Studies continues to pursue its efforts in collaboration with others, not least through the ad hoc group for North-South and East-West cooperation, to ensure that all forms of cross-border cooperation, including those at the informal, local and community levels, are safeguarded in the post-Brexit context, and that all of us understand how we can achieve this. Our conference is also informed by the Centre for Cross-Border Studies understanding that for cross-border cooperation and relations to thrive, we need the right political and social conditions. That is why, as a means of monitoring the health of North-South and East-West cooperation, the Centre for Cross-Border Studies launched its first online quarterly survey in March of this year, with the 3rd quarterly survey currently open for responses from civic society organisations and local authorities on the island of Ireland until next Thursday. So, today, our first panel session, generously sponsored by the City of Derry Airport, will consider the political conditions for post-Brexit cooperation within and between these islands, while our second panel will offer an insight into the social conditions and how communities and civic society regard North-South and East-West cooperation and relations. The final panel session, which forms part of the Centre for Cross-Border Studies Maintaining the Conditions for Cooperation and Cross-Border Lives project, made possible by the Department of Foreign Affairs Reconciliation Fund, will consider the need to measure the impacts of policy from a cross-border perspective, and will include input from the Institute of Public Health, one of our conference sponsors. We also have 2 prestigious keynote speakers to offer their own insights on this conference's overarching theme. So, it's now time for you to make sure you're sitting comfortably as we begin the Centre for Cross-Border Studies 22nd Annual Conference. Thank you.
The Centre for Cross-Border Studies is unique in that it is an organisation which is clearly doing very important research into the impact of the border on our economy, on our society, and indeed on our political system as well. And that research has been hugely helpful to policymakers like myself when it comes to developing policies, particularly when we're looking at the impact of the border on the border regions.